and the ability to actually see two like fundamentally different civilizations flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. When Earth is on the other side of the sun from Mars, like the times where Mars is literally on the other side of the sun. You can't get no matter what you do. So that time gap would mean that there'd be essentially a new group of people arriving roughly every 2 years. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. People would probably trace their I came on this this particular sun, Earth-Mars synchronization event. I don't know, but like I said, the important thing is like that we've established Mars as a self-sustaining civilization, and that we've done whatever we can to ensure the long-term continuance of consciousness as we know it. Because so as far as we can tell, we're the only the light of consciousness, which is a delicate little candle in the dark. It's only here on Earth. I mean, it might be other places, and there's arguments that it's likely to be other places, but honestly, we have seen no sign of it. And I'm pretty sure that I would have known about it, and I've seen nothing to indicate that there's any alien civilization whatsoever. I'd be the first to jump on that in a second, but I've seen no such evidence.
Elon, that's actually something we wanted to ask you about, because in the last year, there has been multiple reported UFO sightings. There was the mysterious object that flew past our solar system. I think you just described that you haven't seen any evidence of aliens, but A, do you think we'll ever run into them? And B, if we do, have you heard of dark forest theory from the three-body problem? How do you think we should think about aliens?
Yeah, I'm trying to be strict in the scientific sense of the word, of saying I've seen not a single piece of conclusive evidence. So that doesn't mean there aren't aliens. I'm just literally saying I've seen nothing that could not be explained by other means, and where the probable explanation by other means is much more likely than this alien technology. So, and for people that say like there's sightings of aliens, I'm like, listen, man, the resolution of the picture needs to be at least like 7-Eleven ATM good. Okay. We can't have that fuzzy Loch Ness monster bullshit, It's like, come on. You got is that like a 500 megapixel camera? What are you talking about? Where do you find that thing? It's gonna be at least like iPhone 6 level or something. I don't know.
Can I ask one more Mars question?
Sure.
If that's okay for you. So Elon, you famously have a pile of really beautiful kids. And I know you care about them a great deal, as all parents do. What would your response be if they start coming to you when they turn 18 or 22 and they say, Dad, we're, now that you've landed us on Mars and there's colony forming, like I really want to go?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about, say, the third or fourth set of landings on Mars, I think that'd probably be I'd be okay with that. Although I've followed them so far, and none of them say they want to go, so they may change their minds, but currently they're not chomping at the bit to go to Mars.
Okay, interesting. Elon, okay. So I think for folks who may not know this, I think we originally met over Twitter, and it's just safe to say, and I want to move on from Mars to memes. It is safe to say that you might be the master of the memes, and in fact, you had a quote, "Who controls the memes controls the universe." Could you just explain what you meant by that and how you became this person?
Well, it's a play on words from Dune. Who controls the spice controls the universe. And if memes are spice, then it's memes. There's a little bit of truth to it in that, like how do you what is it that influences the zeitgeist? Like how do things become interesting to people? And memes like actually kind of a complex form of communication that's that like a picture says 1,000 words and maybe a meme says 10,000 words. It's a complex picture with a bunch of meaning in it, and it can be it's aspirationally funny. So it's I don't know. I love memes. That I think they can be very insightful. And throughout history, I think the symbolism in general has powerfully affected people. So, yeah.
How did you get so good at them? I mean, I remember following you many years ago. Going from that to your sea shanties meme or any one of the memes, and some of it may not be safe for work here. How did you get so good?
We're told that. Why do we have to be safe for work?
We don't have to be safe for work.
This doesn't work. I don't know. I don't know. I guess probably. If you go back to my very early tweets, or technically I was on Twitter. I think in the very early days when there were only like maybe 10,000, less than 10,000 users. But then like people were just like tweeting like what kind of latte they had at the University Street Starbucks, and I was like, I don't need to know this. So then I deleted my Twitter account, and then a fake person who got my Twitter account and tweeted for a few years, and then my friend Billy said, hey, you really should be on Twitter so you can speak directly to people. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. My friend Billy convinced me to regain my Twitter account, and my early tweets are pretty racy, and it's pretty like, because I was reading this biography of Captain the Great, so it's sort of things went crazy from there.
By the way, I like how you say that your early tweets were racy and not right now. I just like that.
Look at your profile.
Other people think like, oh, he's gone crazy on Twitter. I'm like, no, I started crazy on Twitter.
What's like your favorite set of new memes, Elon? Like, what are the new things that you're following now with respect to memes or creating?
Sorry, what was that again?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask you, what are the new memes that you're like following or creating right now? What are the ones that are interesting to you right now?
What was that again?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't really follow memes.
You just make them.
I make some of them, and then some of them are sent to me. I have some pretty kick-ass meme dealers.
Yeah.
Who's the meme dealer? Is this like somebody who's in the back having over a signal?
Memes, going at a good price.
Are there meme dealers on Mars? Wait.
You gotta have a good meme dealer.
There will be.
My friend Mike is a good meme dealer, and Claire as well, and Jake now, and quite a few others actually. I fortunately am the lucky recipient of very interesting memes.
That's great. Today we're done. Slightly changing subjects a bit. Just on Twitter. Today you posted about Neuralink and why people should be working there. For folks who don't know about it, I thought it was really cool. Like, just the possibility of it is just really fantastic. Tell us more about it. There are a lot of engineers listening on this clubhouse. What is Neuralink? Why should we care? What is possible with it?
Sure. So, the long-term. Okay, so Neuralink stems from a concern I had, where I was trying to figure out, even in a benign AI scenario, how do we at least go along for the ride? So, if for those that are following AI closely, it's obviously improving dramatically. If you see look say GPT-1 versus GPT-2 versus GPT-3, and just how radically that's improved. And just as deep minds, and I think they've run out of games to win at basically. And there's just, and look, I say like at Tesla, an important thing to note I should make is like Tesla actually has, I think, one of the strongest AI teams in the world, but it's an AI team focused on real world usability. So just really solving vision, perception, and control with AI. But even in a benign scenario for AI, where let's say like the AI is like just really wants to be super nice to us and make us happy. Well, how do we stay relevant and still have meaning and at least go along for the ride? That's in the good scenario. And then in terms of avoiding the bad scenario, to the degree we can couple collective human will to the outcome of artificial intelligence and what's developed in that way, I think that'll probably be a better scenario than if we're unable to effectively couple collective human will to that outcome. So, the final, now, sorry, this is getting kind of esoteric, but
we love it. Keep going.
Okay, so people are already a cyborg, and that you already have a tertiary digital layer. You've got your sort of limbic system, which is your primitive drives and desires and responses, and then you've got your cortex, which is like long-term planning and thinking. Those are two biological layers, and then there's a tertiary layer, a third layer, which is digital, and you already have that in the form of your phones and computers and all your applications. You're far more powerful than a human would be without those cognitive enhancements. But the bandwidth between your cortex and your digital tertiary layer is very slow. And in fact, with the advent of phones, it got even slower. So if you're thumbing, like, say what's the bit rate of a pair of thumbs on a phone, it's very low. I mean, let's be super generous and say it's 100 bits per second. Well, computers can communicate at trillions of bits per second. So it's, at a certain point, the computer gets smart enough. It's like the computer's just like trying to talk to a tree. Trees do sort of talk, but they talk so slow that we don't notice. So we need to improve the bandwidth. And with a direct neural interface, we can improve the bandwidth between your cortex and your digital tertiary layer by many orders of magnitude. I'd say probably at least 1,000 or maybe 10,000 or more. And we could also spend a lot more time thinking about interesting things as opposed to taking complex thought structures, compressing them down into words, which also, again, a very low bit rate, and then having someone else receive those words, decompress them, and then send words back at you. So a huge amount of our brain power spent in compression, decompression, and we could be instead spending it on deeper concepts. And so if you had a neural link, if two people had a neural link, you could do conceptual telepathy, where you have a complex series of concepts, and you could just transfer them directly, uncompressed, to the person. This would massively improve the quality of communication and the speed of it. So, there are other sort of pretty wild things that could be done. Like you could probably save state in the brain, and so if you were to die, your state could be returned either in the form of another human body or a robot body. I mean, this is getting like really into weird sci-fi stuff here.
This is great. This is basically altered carbon, right? Like this makes a plot like from altered carbon. Go on, love it.
Yeah,
It's kind of like altered carbon. Yeah, exactly. But I think you could decide you want to be a robot or a person or whatever. And you wouldn't be exactly the same. So there'd be a little lost in transfer. But you could also say it's also arguably true that when you wake up in the morning, you're not exactly the same as yesterday. Or the you of a month ago is not the same as the you of today. A bunch of brain cells have died, and some memories have faded, some have strengthened. There are new memories. So anyway, the point is like you wouldn't be. There could be something analogous to a video game, like a saved game situation, where you are able to resume, upload your last state. Yeah, kind of like altered carbon. Maybe lose a few memories, but mostly be you. So now that's the long-term stuff. In the short term, for Neuralink, the idea would really just be to address brain injuries or spinal injuries, and make up for whatever lost capacity somebody has with an implanted chip. So the first thing that we're going after is a wireless implanted chip that would enable someone who's a quadriplegic or tetraplegic to control a computer or mouse or their phone or really any device just by thinking. And this obviously would be a massive enabler, make life way easier for them. There have been sort of primitive versions of this device, one done with like wires sticking out of your head, but it doesn't work all the time, and you can't take it home with you. So just having, basically, you think, like, in simplistic terms, I'd say it's sort of like a Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires that go to your brain. So Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires. So if somebody who's listening is good at designing like Fitbits, Apple Watches, phones, computers of various kinds, then actually they would be a great fit for Neuralink. So yeah, we'll probably be releasing some new videos showing progress maybe in a month or so, and because we already got like a monkey with a wireless implant in their skull and the tiny wires, who can play video games using his mind. And he's totally amazing. He looks totally normal and happy. So it does not look like an unhappy monkey. And you can't even see where the neural implant was put in. Except for that, he's got like a slight like dark mohawk. But other than that, yeah, he's not uncomfortable and he doesn't look weird. So we're and I was like when the USDA person came through and inspected our facilities, our monkey facilities, she said it was like the nicest monkey facilities she's ever seen in her entire career. Just FYI. We went the extra mile for the monkeys.
As long as you didn't make them play Cyberpunk.
that would be a hell of a trip for a monkey. But one of the things we're trying to figure out is like, can we have the monkeys play mind pong with each other? Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I have to say the pig demo was really fantastic. That was really cool.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, it's great seeing Neuralink and making good progress. And like I said, I want to be clear. Like the early applications will really just be for people who've had a serious brain injury, like where it's like the value of the implant would be enormous, because obviously the early implants will come with some non-trivial risk, and so it's going to be like, okay, does the good far outweigh the bad, and then that would be a candidate for some of the initial surgeries with full disclosure of like these are risks and everything. And one of the things we're really paying close attention to is the ability to remove the implant. So it's like, it's not like, if somebody doesn't want it or it's not working, we can take it out and then we can reimplant another one. So we've tested implantation, removal, and reimplantation, and it works great.
Sorry, Mark. Switching topics. Yeah, please. So switching topics. So Elon, as I mentioned kids earlier, as it turns out, I have a very bright and inquisitive 5-year-old who is crawling all over everything and trying to figure everything out and learning as much as he can, as fast as he can. Like, what, with everything that we know now and kind of all the modern tools that we have, like, what's the best way to think about educating a 5-year-old in today's world?
Sorry, the best way to educate a 5-year-old?
Yeah, educate a 5-year-old and then think about kind of his education over the course of the next, 5 or 10 years. Like, what kind of program ideally should you think a kid should be on?
Well, my observation is my kids were mostly educated by YouTube and Reddit, and then and their, I guess, classmates and I guess there were lessons as well, but judging by the amount of time they spent online, it seemed like most of their education is actually coming from online. I think generally with education, you want to make it as interesting and exciting as possible. I've said, like, what are some of the, like, if you see, like what are all the things, like, say, a good video game does to keep someone engaged and interested? You know, if kids can be super engaged in video games, I think there's a way for them to be super engaged in education as well. Like, one of the things that's, I think, very fundamental is to explain the why of things. Like, so we're teaching you this, but we're going to explain why we're teaching you this and why it is relevant. I mean, we've evolved to forget things that are irrelevant or have low relevance probability. It makes sense. Like, otherwise we'd remember all sorts of nonsense things that weren't very important to our future. So unless relevance is established clearly, then people will have a hard time remembering it by its nature, because it appears to be irrelevant. It might be relevant, but if it's not explained to them, they won't know. And then if you want to have some sort of if you're trying to say problem solving, some sort of engaging narrative for the problem solving, like, it's like far better to say, okay, we're going to teach you how an engine works by taking apart an engine and then putting it back together. And then let's find out what tools are needed for in order to take this engine apart, put it back together. It's like, okay, we need screwdrivers and wrenches and Allen keys, and we need a winch, and a bunch of other things. And then you understand the relevance, and it's much more of an interesting problem. This is much better than having, say, a course on wrenches or a course on screwdrivers. You just, like, start with a problem and say, what tools I need to solve this problem. That establishes relevance and gives a compelling narrative thread.
Yeah, it seems like you could kind of, if you had sort of elaborate enough projects, you know, you could roll a huge number of topics into that ultimately kind of combine into a single project with, you know, some really actually, you know, interesting form of output. You know, like, you know, for example, you know, literally building a vehicle or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You have a narrative thread, or like, why is it all established relevance, and there's a story to it, and then you say, like, well, if, you know, you can't turn that bolt without the wrench, and then, like, let's see, how can we make this engine better? What do we need to do? Okay, well, let's calculate, you know, if it's a gasoline engine, you know, how do you get to a higher RPM or better compression ratio? You know, I'm using, like, outdated analogy of engines, but you can say for an electric motor, and then you can explain. It's obvious why, you know, things like Maxwell's equations become necessary in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Elon, you would not believe the number of parents and people with kids who have asked us about tonight. And I think there are two questions that are connected. One is, you know, how do kids, if you're having a kid and you want teacher to become a polymath like you have become, what advice you have for parents? And the next one is, here you are with, you know, so many companies that you've created, I can't even list them off the top of my head. Why doesn't the world have, and this doesn't mean to sound, you know, psychopathic, but why doesn't the world have more Elon Musks?
Well, I don't know. I might be getting too much credit here. So, I mean, for me, these things I've done have been because I felt a strong compulsion to do them. So it's not like nobody was pushing me to do it, but they're just like I felt a strong compulsion to do them. I mean, I wouldn't say, you know, there were pretty long sections of my life that have been very painful and difficult, and I'm not sure people would want to do that, you know. There's if somebody wants to be me or do the things I've done, I would say most probably you're mistaken. You do not want to do that. You'd have to have some kind of like rage demon in your skull that you just got to get it done. It's like when people ask me, like, what encouraging words do you have for entrepreneurs who want to do a startup? And my response is, if you need encouraging words, don't do a startup. Yeah, my friend Bully, doing a startup was like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Yep, for a long time.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. We're going to switch up just a second, but I think for everyone in the audience who just caught up and managed to squeeze in, just a quick reset/recap. This is the one and only Elon Musk for his first time on Clubhouse, and this is a show that we do every single day. I know a lot of you are trying to get in the room. There are a bunch of overflow rooms. See if we can get in there. But we're just having an amazing conversation with Elon. Elon, okay. This is something you joked about, but I'm kind of curious to get your, maybe serious answer to this, which is all things cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. You famously just changed your Twitter bio to just the Bitcoin logo and the word Bitcoin this week. What do you think of cryptocurrency? What do you think of Bitcoin? What do you think of other cryptocurrencies? We'd love to get your take on the entire thing.
Well, yeah, I gotta watch what I say here because some of these things can really move the market. So, first of all, I should say many friends of mine have tried to convince me to get involved in Bitcoin for a long time, like from where it first just popped, it popped out there. And, my friend, my bully, he actually had Bitcoin cake, a cake that was had a big sort of Bitcoin symbol on it, and he fed me a slice of Bitcoin cake in 2013. So, I mean, clearly, I should have at least bought some Bitcoin 8 years ago. What more do people need to do? Jesus, talk about being late. Talk about being late to the party. So I was a little slow on the uptake there. My apologies. But I think about it a fair bit. But I do at this point think Bitcoin is a good thing. So I am a supporter of Bitcoin. Like I said, I'm late to the party, but I'm a supporter of Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin is really on the verge of getting broad acceptance by sort of the conventional finance people, So, yeah, I think so. I don't have a strong opinion on other cryptocurrencies. I mean, occasionally I make jokes about Dogecoin, but they are really just meant to be jokes. But Dogecoin was made as a joke to make fun of cryptocurrencies, obviously. But fate loves irony, and often, as a friend of mine says, the most ironic outcome is most likely, or as I like to say, the most entertaining outcome is often most likely, and arguably the most entertaining outcome and the most ironic outcome would be that Dogecoin becomes the currency of Earth in the future.
Oh my God. Elon, when you tweeted me this afternoon, I will say my tweet replies have been overwhelmed by probably a zillion different cryptocurrency coins. But yeah. And by the way, you might remember the infamous time when your replies were filled with cryptocurrency bots on Twitter.
Oh my God. It was insane. Yeah.
That's actually how Elon and I actually wound up meeting, because that was a very painful time. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, and then I made a joke about Bitcoin, and my account got locked.
Yeah. I had to actually try and convince some folks that was actually the real Elon Musk to try and get his account unblocked.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to bring us back to one of your companies. We actually have a Tesla Model S sitting outside our house right now. It carries us and our 2-year-old baby around, and we love it. Would love to just get your take on where you see you just have a refresh of the Model S coming out. I just saw the review for it. Where do you just see the future for Tesla, and especially when it comes to all things battery technology and self-driving? Those two topics I think a lot of people are very interested in.
Okay, so you're asking me about the future of batteries and self-driving?
More like actually, where do you see Tesla over the next few years?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, the goal with Tesla is to, and has been from the beginning, is to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. So in order to do that, we've got to make a lot of cars. We've got to make them increasingly affordable. And our rough target is we want to be able to eventually make 20 million cars a year. And the reason for that is there's 2 billion active cars and trucks on the road. And figure if you're not really moving the needle unless you're changing 1% of the existing fleet. And so that's roughly how we came up with 20 million cars and trucks per year. That's very important to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. And then, of course, we've got stationary battery packs and solar, which was making a lot of progress on that front. So yeah, we're going to try to grow car production as fast as possible, and that the primary limiting factor there is battery cell production. So we're getting as much as possible from suppliers, and then but even that is not enough. So we're actually going to be building battery cells ourselves. But it's important to emphasize that to our suppliers who are great, we've got great suppliers, that we're not trying to put them out of business. We want them to increase their rate as well. So Panasonic, LG, and CATL, and then but if to add to increase to accelerate sustainable energy further, we're making our own cells, and pretty excited about that. And then anyway, so I think you expect possibly an acceleration of compound annual growth. Well, at least aspirationally, that's our goal. And then combine that with autonomy, and it's a very powerful story because once you have autonomy with self-driving cars, you massively increase the utility of any given car. A typical car is driven about 12 hours a week. You think of maybe depending on the situation where you live, it's like maybe an hour and a half a day or something like that. Or in LA, it might be 2 hours a day. So roughly 12 hours a week, and there's 168 hours in a week, in a 7-day week. So most likely cars that are autonomous could maybe do a third of the hours in the week or something like that. So maybe they do, I don't know, 60 hours a week of usage instead of 12. So you got basically a 5x.
I'm sorry for the interruption. It looks like we may have lost Soph temporarily, so I'm going to try to get him back in. But if anyone else is able to host as a broadcaster, oh, there's Soph. He's back.
you. Me too. Me seriously. I confess. First of all, I'm not like fundamentally against LiDAR, on all things, because for the SpaceX Dragon that docks with the space station, we actually developed and built our own LiDAR for docking with the space station. So obviously, if I hated LiDAR, we would not have done that. And this is well before. This is like 10 years ago we started doing that. So I'm not like, I don't have some sort of weird antagonism to LiDAR. However, for driving on real world roads, you have to solve vision. You have to solve vision, basically understanding objects with passive optical photons, and then making sense of those objects. So like vision, perception. What do those objects mean? What are they going to do? What is the likely path of travel? And then control, and all of that really is AI. The way we're doing it is by running a bunch of neural nets in our head. So we're going to run a bunch of neural nets to do the same thing in the car. And at the point at which you solve passive optical, and this is better passive optical than a human has, because you've got 8 cameras, 3 of which point directly forward, 2 that are diagonally forward, and 2 that are diagonally rear, and 1 rear. So the way we do it right now is we have all 8 cameras synchronized with, so you've got 8 frames collected simultaneously, and we're moving towards, and have in fact mostly moved towards video training. So you've got 8 surround cameras. It's like kind of a surreal thing to see, because people look, really, people have 2 eyes, but kind of like really more like 1 eye, because the 2 eyes kind of combine. But anyway, the neural net basically it needs to move to full video training, video inference, surround video training, surround video inference, and then it will be superhuman, no question about it. There's just because people don't have eyes in the back of their head, like you basically have effectively a human, for all intents and purposes, it's like having 1 camera on a slow gimbal, and that is often distracted. Maybe sort of drunk, or change the radio, or there's all sorts of things that go